Our Love vs. Virginia, a story full of emotion and love. Back in 1967, let's just say interracial marriages weren't approved of. They weren't popular, they weren't liked by many people. The story of Mildred and Richard Loving consisting of a white man and a black woman sharing their story of making interracial marriage legal in America. Let's take a second to rewind. Back in the 1960s, when Martin Luther King had his Black Rights Movement, people were celebrating Black rights, empowerment, and much more. Black people were roaming in the streets with protests to show their Black power. A small town in Virginia consisting of many races, including whites and blacks, Richard and Mildred Loving grew up together as neighbors. They were lifelong friends, and eventually, they fell in love. As the two grew up together and fell in love and had really sweet moments, Richard Loving decided to ask Mildred the question of will they get married. They got married in the District of Columbia and decided to move back home in Virginia where they grew up together. Unfortunately, one night while they were sleeping, they got a knock on their door and they were arrested for committing a criminal charge. They were charged with miscegenation, a law that restricted any romantic or sexual relationship between two ethnic groups that caused a reproduction of two different races mixed together. This happened especially if the relationship included a white person. And with that, Richard and Mildred had kids together, Sydney, Peggy, and Donald. Therefore, they were committing a felony, and they were charged with 1 year of jail time due to them having kids and being two different races. Here is an interview with Mildred Loving about the situation.
Is a right that no man should have anything to do with. It's a God-given right, I think.
Mildred Loving married the boy and expect to find hate in others. Their home swarms with children, their own 3, as well as neighborhood friends who enjoy the warmth here. Mrs. Loving recalls how the ordeal began one night in 1958.
The night we were arrested, I guess it was about 2 a.m. And I saw this light, and I woke up and it was the policeman standing beside the bed. And he told us to get up, that we was under arrest.
Judge Leon M. Baisley decided to suspend the case under one condition, that they would exit and leave Virginia for at least 25 years. Later on, Mildred Loving, with anger and despair, decided to write a letter, but you'd never guess who the letter was for. She decided to write the letter for Robert Kennedy Jr. He read the letter and approved of the case and decided to send it to the American Civil Liberty Union. The ACLU decided to take their case and was helped by 2 lawyers, Bernard Cohan and Philip Hirschkopf, also a young lawyer in the ACLU. The 2 lawyers asked Judge Baisley to vacate their sentences and set aside their convictions. However, Judge Baisley denied to set aside their convictions. Therefore, when it was denied, everyone was heartbroken. However, when Judge Baisley refused, Cohan and Hickershop decided to take the case up to the Virginia Supreme Court, which was also unfortunately denied and upheld. Later on, with a few processes, the case was upward to the Supreme Court itself. After studying, Hickershop and Cohan realized that there was a violation that was happening at the moment. The violation being of the 14th Amendment, where race shouldn't have to do anything with the law. After Hickershop and Cohan discussed and studied the problem, they decided to go to the court and discuss that there was a violation of the 14th Amendment, but not only that, there was a bunch of racism towards Black people and people of color. After those crucial viewpoints that were given about racism and slavery laws, Errol Warren had made his decision. But before we find out his decision, I would like you guys to take a look at these audios found in the case.
What is the danger to the state of Virginia of interracial marriage? What is the state of the danger to the people of interracial marriage? This question has been carefully avoided.
Has never been applied to them, which is not now applied to them, and which this court, we respectfully submit, cannot possibly reach, is a statute which forbids a white person to marry any other than a white person.
What effect does that have on a white person and a colored person
Who
who married in New York and moved to Virginia to live?
A white person and a colored person who married in New York and moved to Virginia to live under that statute their marriage would not be recognized in Virginia under that statute or under this statute.
Under Virginia law.
Under Virginia law.
That they would be living in adultery.
That's correct, Your Honor.
And now for the ruling. The ruling was that the 14th Amendment was being violated, and that was lifted off all of the states in America, meaning interracial marriage was legal. This proved that love wins, and it does not matter what race you are or what gender you are. You could be any color, any race to marry the one you love. And these are pictures of people who also benefited from the Loving versus Virginia case. Multiple people of color and different races getting married and showing that love wins. But how did this impact our world at the moment? These are a bunch of interviews by people now who have benefited from the Loving versus Virginia case at the time and who are still alive to this day.
Versus Virginia, we've not been able to get married there or in 19 states.
That Supreme Court decision, fortunate to be living in the state of New York where we were able to get married. If we had lived in the state of Maryland where we're living now, we could not have gotten married. It was against the law. We would have been arrested.